There are many examples of the supernatural found in Scripture. It's a realm where the impossible becomes possible. The Bible is filled with testimonies of those who witnessed the intermingling of the heavenly and earthly realms. For humans, these events are strange, and some would even call them paranormal because these unusual happenings are beyond human explanation. But for those who want to walk by faith, you need to understand that it's a supernatural way of life in the kingdom of heaven. Listen to these words from John 17:14 through 16. Messiah is talking to the Father. He says, I have given them your word, speaking of his disciples, and the world has hated them because they are not of the world, just as I am not of the world. I do not pray that you should take them out of the world, but that you should keep them from the evil one. They are not of the world, just as I am not of the world. Now that's a strange statement. They are not of the world. What is he really saying here? He's saying that we belong to a different kingdom. Even though we may live here on this earth, our allegiance is to the kingdom of heaven, where the Most High reigns as our sovereign king. So we need to understand that things in the kingdom of heaven operate in ways that may seem strange to us. Here we see in Philippians 3:20 that Paul is confirming that we belong to a different kingdom. He tells us that our citizenship is in heaven. Now, because the Most High's ways are so much higher than our ways, we may find ourselves scratching our heads because we have no explanation for some of the instructions that we are given. But Scripture is full of what we consider to be unexplainable happenings. What's interesting is that sometimes we read right over them without giving it much thought. This passage from Genesis 3:1 is a very good example of that. It says, Now the serpent was more cunning than any beast of the field which the Most High had made. And he said to the woman, Has Yah indeed said, You shall not eat of every tree of the garden? Have we really thought about how strange this is that the serpent is speaking to her? Obviously, she didn't think it was strange. He was speaking to her in a language that she understood, and clearly he could understand her. But interestingly, the serpent isn't the only example of this strange phenomena. In Numbers 22, we see an example of Balaam's donkey speaking. So we cannot overlook the fact that there are powerful entities who can enable animals to speak. In the serpent's case, there is no doubt who was using him to speak to Eve. And in Balaam's example, we know that the Most High was using the donkey to speak to Balaam. So I want us to really examine some of these instances from Scripture that we gave very little thought to before. Another good one to look at is Genesis 5:21 through 24. It says, Enoch lived 65 years and begot Methuselah. After he begot Methuselah, Enoch walked with Yah 300 years and had sons and daughters. So all the days of Enoch were 365 years. And Enoch walked with Yah, and he was not, for Yah took him. In other words, he did not die. He just walked off with the Most High one day. Now that is certainly supernatural. That would make him the oldest living human, would it not? And interestingly, this is what man is attempting to do now through technology. They're looking for the fountain of youth so that they can live forever. Well, that's already possible in the Most High's kingdom. It's been done before. This article from Live Science is asking the question, will humans ever be immortal? And apparently they believe that the human body is what's holding man back. This article from Daily Mail says, could you live forever? It says humans will achieve immortality using AI and genetic engineering by 2050. So Dr. Ian Pearson claims people born after 1970 should be able to live forever. He says genetic engineering could be used to reduce or reverse the aging of cells. Also, it says AI could lead to android bodies for humans to live in after their bodies fail. So virtual reality worlds could be created for people to upload their minds to. Pretty creepy, don't you think? This article from the Wall Street Journal says how tech can bring our loved ones to life after they die. It says, could AI keep people alive after death? Experts are now exploring ways artificial intelligence might confer a kind of digital immortality, preserving the personalities of the departed in virtual form and then allowing them to evolve. So now they want to resurrect people using technology. But in these instances, we already have several examples from Scripture of those who were resurrected. Outside of Messiah, we know that Lazarus was brought back. But these were the workings of the Most High, the Creator. Now we're looking at man's attempt to be God, because they are still asking the question, is there a need for a Creator? This is another supernatural event from Scripture. This comes from Genesis 21, 1 through 7. Let's read this. And the Most High visited Sarah as he had said. And the Most High did for Sarah as he had spoken. For Sarah conceived and bore Abraham a son in his old age, at the set time of which Yah had spoken to him. And Abraham called the name of his son, who was born to him, whom Sarah bore to him, Isaac. Then Abraham circumcised his son Isaac when he was 8 days old, as Yah had commanded him. Now Abraham was 100 years old when his son Isaac was born to him. And Sarah said, Yah has made me laugh, and all who hear will laugh with me. She also said, who would have said to Abraham that Sarah would nurse children? For I have borne him a son in his old age. So the backstory here is that not only was Sarah barren, she had already gone through menopause. That's the amazing part. She's 90. Her husband is 100, and they're having a child. So Isaac was a miracle baby. This was a supernatural event. Not to be outdone, we can look and see what science is now doing. This comes from the BBC. They asked the question, how far can female fertility be extended? It says modern medicine is already allowing women to have children far later in life than their ancestors. But how far can female fertility really be extended? So the article says it's one of nature's great inequities, says Dagan Wells, professor of reproductive medicine at the University of Oxford. He is referring to the progressive and largely irreversible decline in female fertility from the age of 35 years onwards. It says men also experience a decline in their baby-making ability as they get older. But this fall in fertility tends to start later and occur much more slowly than in women. The fertility rate for men tends to begin falling around the age of 40 to 45 years old. So it says, but when exactly does a woman's fertility start declining? And when does that decline result in the end of natural fertility? The article goes on to say for millennia, women have been getting pregnant and bearing children in their teens and early 20s. Not much different from the Krapina Neanderthals living in northern Croatia 30,000 years ago, whose fossilized remains suggest gave birth to their first child at 15 years of age. Prior to the 1960s, women in the U.S. were having their first child on average at around the age of 21. So now you get to see the advancement. This comes from Healthline. It says a 61-year-old woman gave birth to her grandchild. So Cecile Elledge made headlines for acting as a gestational surrogate for her own grandchild. Her son, Matthew Elledge, and his husband, Elliot Dowdery, were interested in having a child. And that's when Cecil Elledge offered to carry their child. The baby was conceived, listen to this, by her son's sperm and an egg from Dowdery's sister. But her age has many people wondering how it was possible. According to the American Society for Reproductive Medicine, pregnancy may be possible in virtually any woman with a normal uterus, regardless of age, and even in the absence of ovaries and ovarian function. But of course, you know they need to push it to the extreme. So this from Medical News Today. Can men become pregnant? A person who was born male and is living as a man cannot get pregnant. However, some transgender men and non-binary people can. In most cases, including cis men who have sex with men, male pregnancy is not possible. New research in uterine transplants may mean that male pregnancy could be a possibility in the future, though. Now, I want you to listen carefully to the title of this article from Cultural Research and Innovation. It says, any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic. Think carefully about that statement. This is a power source for the kingdom of darkness, sorcery, and technology. It's artificial intelligence. It's mimicking the power that comes from the kingdom of heaven. And as they continue to advance, things will get stranger and stranger. But I hope you see that they are calling it a form of magic. So it's time for us to embrace the supernatural things already found in Scripture. We've shied away from a lot of them, but we need to understand how things operate in the kingdom we belong to. So let's look at some more examples. Now let's make sure we understand what this word means. This is how Britannica defines it. Supernatural. It's unable to be explained by science or the laws of nature. Of relating to or seeming to come from magic, a god, etc. So things that cannot be explained by science and seem to involve ghosts, spirits, magic, etc. Let's keep going. Listen to this from Genesis 3:9. Then the Most High called to Adam and said to him, "Where are you?" So he said, "I heard your voice in the garden, and I was afraid because I was naked, and I hid myself." For those of you who say the Most High speaks to you, based on the definition we just read, that's considered supernatural. Did you know that? The fact that you are saying that you hear the voice of the Creator cannot be explained by science or the laws of nature. They are more than likely to say that you're crazy. Here we see Adam saying that he heard the voice of Yah in the garden. Psalm 120:1 says, "In my distress I cried unto the Most High, and he heard me." For those of you who pray, you're engaging in a supernatural act. You're praying to an entity that you cannot see. And if you say he heard you, and if you say he responded to you, that most certainly cannot be explained by science. It's supernatural. How do you explain that? But what's even more confusing to me is those who say they pray, but they think it's weird when people say, "Well, the Most High spoke to me." Why do you pray if you don't think he can answer? Let's keep going. I want to look at this story from Deuteronomy 2:1-7. Moses is speaking. He says, "Then we turned and journeyed into the wilderness of the way of the Red Sea, as the Most High spoke to me, and we skirted Mount Seir for many days. And the Most High spoke to me, saying, You have skirted this mountain long enough. Turn northward and command the people, saying, You are about to pass through the territory of your brethren, the descendants of Esau, who live in Seir, and they will be afraid of you." Now Moses is speaking the words to the people, the words given to him by the Most High. The nation is being led by a man who is listening to a voice speaking to him. As a result of doing that, they were delivered from the bondage of Egypt. So now he's giving them some additional instructions because it's time for them to go in and to possess the promised land. So he says, "Therefore watch yourselves carefully. Do not meddle with them, for I will not give you any of their land. No, not so much as one footstep, because I have given Mount Seir to Esau as a possession. You shall buy food from them with money that you may eat, and you shall also buy water from them with money that you may drink. For the Most High has blessed you in all the work of your hand. He knows you're trudging through this great wilderness, these 40 years. The Most High has been with you. You have lacked nothing." Now they have been in the wilderness 40 years, and they lacked nothing. Now that's one thing to keep in mind as we understand the ways of the kingdom. There is no lack in Yah's kingdom. The king provides for his subjects, for his people. But not only is he our king, he is our father. A good father is going to provide for his children. You won't have to force a good father to do that. Let's keep going. So Israel is now ready to go in and take the land, but they have to deal with some enemies. And the enemies they were afraid to face the first time giants. Lesson for us. You won't skip ahead to the next grade when you're operating in the kingdom of heaven. That test will come back around until you pass it. So let's read this, Deuteronomy 2:24 through 25. Rise, take your journey and cross over the river Arnon. So the Most High is still speaking. Look, I have given into your hands Sihon the Amorite, king of Heshbon, and his land. Begin to possess it and engage him in battle. This day I will begin to put the dread and fear of you upon the nations under the whole heaven, who shall hear the report of you and shall tremble and be in anguish because of you. So we see that they are about to face giants once again. But it's not the generation that refused to do it the first time. It's their children. The only two from the previous generation is Joshua and Caleb. They were preserved because they had the faith to believe the first time. What's sad is that even though they brought back a good report, they had to endure 40 years in the wilderness just like everyone else. It was all or nothing. But we get to see the supernatural work of the kingdom here. The Most High has put dread and fear upon the nations. Don't miss the fact that this is 40 years after they left Egypt. He's telling them that the nations would be in anguish because of them. 40 years later? It wasn't because our people were naturally stronger than those people. It was because of the power of the Most High at work on Israel's behalf. Let's continue on with verse 26 through 30. And I sent messengers from the wilderness of Kedemoth to Sihon, king of Heshbon, with words of peace, saying, Let me pass through your land. I will keep strictly to the road, and I will turn neither to the right nor to the left. You shall sell me food for money that I may eat. So he's just repeating what the Most High has said. And give me water for money that I may drink. Only let me pass through on foot, just as the descendants of Esau who dwell in Seir and the Moabites who dwell in Ar did for me, until I cross the Jordan to the land which the Most High is giving us. But Sihon, king of Heshbon, would not let us pass through. For the Most High hardened his spirit and made his heart obstinate, that he might deliver him into your hand, as it is this day. So we see that they asked this king to let them pass through, and he refused. Why? The Most High had hardened this king's heart because he wanted Israel to have that land. Let's see what else happens. Continuing on, Deuteronomy 2:32 through 36, Then Sihon and all his people came out against us to fight at Jahaz. And the Most High delivered him over to us, so we defeated him, his sons, and all his people. We took all his cities at that time, all of his cities. And we utterly destroyed the men, women, and little ones of every city. We left none remaining. These were fallen angel seed. And this is where a lot of people miss it, because they just see, oh, they're killing the women and the children, and they don't understand what's going on in these stories. Let's go on, verse 35. We took only the livestock as plunder for ourselves, with the spoil of the cities which we took. From Ar, which is on the bank of the river Arnon, and from the city that is in the ravine, as far as Gilead. There was not one city too strong for us. The Most High delivered all to us. This is a supernatural victory for Israel. But don't miss the fact that the Most High is orchestrating events in the spirit realm for them. He tells them what's going to happen. He gives them the strategy to deal with it, and it comes to pass. This is walking by faith. You put your trust in the one who said it. Walking by faith is a supernatural behavior. Now you're going to see that after they defeated that king, they did the same thing to Og, king of Bashan. Listen to this from Deuteronomy 3:1-2. Then we turned and went up the road to Bashan, and Og, king of Bashan, came out against us, he and all his people, to battle at Edrei. And the Most High said to me, do not fear him, for I have delivered him and all his people and his land into your hand. You shall do to him as you did to Sihon, king of the Amorites, who dwelt at Heshbon. Now let's remember that they resisted going to the promised land the first time because of the giants, and they paid a 40-year price for it. Do you think they learned their lesson? Obviously, because now we see them going up against another giant, Og. When we operate in our own strength, we fail. Now they see that it's not by their might, it's by Yah's power that they conquer. The thing is, they had the power of the Most High the first time, but they were too afraid. They were trusting in their own strength. This was a significant battle. They took all of his land. Let's keep going. We're looking at Deuteronomy 3:4-8. And we took all his cities at that time. There was not a city which we did not take from them. 60 cities. All the region of Argob, the kingdom of Og in Bashan. All these cities, listen, were fortified with high walls, gates, and bars, besides a great many rural towns. And we utterly destroyed them, as we did to Sihon, king of Heshbon, utterly destroying the men, women, and children of every city. But all the livestock and the spoil of the cities we took as booty for ourselves. And at that time we took the land from the hand of the 2 kings of the Amorites who were on this side of the Jordan, from the river Arnon to Mount Hermon. Let's listen to this from Deuteronomy 3:11. For only Og, king of Bashan, remained of the remnant of the giants. So they killed the last of the giants. It says, indeed, his bedstead was an iron bedstead. Is it not in Rabbah of the people of Ammon? 9 cubits is its length, and 4 cubits its width, according to the standard cubit. So that bed is about 13.5 feet. But Israel defeated him and took all the cities, even though these cities were fortified and had high walls. This is what the Most High wanted them to do when they first came out of Egypt. The Most High empowered them to be giant slayers. If he did it before, he can certainly do it again. But here's what we can learn from this. Fear will block your faith and prevent you from experiencing the supernatural. Remember, the Most High's ways are not like our ways. They're high above our ways. Og thought he was invincible, but the Most High gave his people the supernatural ability to defeat him. Let's take a look at how the children of darkness are trying to fortify themselves today.
The super soldiers of the future could simply have enhanced abilities, or they could be part man and part machine, what are known as cyborgs. George Lucas, who has taught military ethics to America's naval officers, says ethical concerns lag behind this new technology.
It always does, and the only question is how far.
And Lucas is concerned that future military recruits could be pressured to accept computer parts into their bodies. He believes they should be allowed to refuse them.
The further into these more exotic technologies we go, and the more the risks are not known, the more we must at least rely on volunteerism, if not as much informed consent as is possible.
The idea is that we're going to take the capabilities of some of the fittest, highest performing individuals in the world, these infantry guys that you were just talking about, and we're going to extend those capabilities. We're going to make them stronger, we're going to make them last longer, and we're going to make them go faster and farther. We're going to take them that extra mile.
General, I want to turn to the China threat. You were really among the first people to come on this program and raise the red flag about China. You told us that they were building a very strong military. We know that they've got the largest Navy in the world. Well, the Director of National Intelligence, John Ratcliffe, joined me on Sunday Morning Futures this weekend to talk about the intelligence that shows the Chinese Communist Party and what it's doing. Here's John Ratcliffe.
It's called gene editing. It's altering DNA.
If you thought mutant soldiers with unstoppable physical and mental powers were nothing more than science fiction, then brace yourselves for what I am about to tell you. In a chilling op-ed, the US Intel chief has warned that China could be breeding genetically modified soldiers. You heard that right. The Chinese regime could be creating mutant soldiers. This possibility has been raised by John Ratcliffe, a former Republican congressman and the director of national intelligence under the Trump administration. Ratcliffe has released an exhaustive report labeling China as the biggest threat to democracy and freedom since the Second World War. He says Beijing is bent on global domination and is giving increasing importance to biotechnology in its military strategy in order to achieve its ambitions. He has warned that Chinese authorities have been conducting human tests on members of the People's Liberation Army in the hopes of developing soldiers with biologically enhanced capabilities. Capabilities like lifting huge weights, infrared night vision, and running at high speeds over extreme distances. Ratcliffe says there seems to be no ethical limit to China's pursuit of power. Time and again, several US-based think tanks have issued similar warnings about soldiers having no physical, physiological, or cognitive limitations. Not too sure about genetic mutations, but the Chinese regime has indeed been working on scientific advancements to boost the capabilities of the PLA troops. In November last year, China's mouthpiece, the Global Times, carried this report about how China was looking to build Iron Man suits that would let soldiers fly. And then 3 weeks back, the Global Times carried another report on how Chinese scientists were developing exoskeletons to be used in high-altitude regions. It said the exoskeleton can effectively save 5 to 10% of the energy spent in walking, climbing, and carrying goods. Ratcliffe's claims may be a little far-fetched, but given that it's China we are talking about, the possibility of mutant soldiers becoming a reality cannot be downplayed.
Listen to this from 1 Corinthians 1:27. Yah has chosen the foolish things of the world to shame the wise. And Yah has chosen the weak things of the world to put to shame the things which are mighty. How is he going to do it, though? Through his people, those who put their trust in him. Those who will believe his word. The children of darkness are relying on science and technology. They believe that they can't be defeated. But Yah's power is greater. He made us to be giant slayers. We're going to wrap up here with this scripture from 1 Corinthians 3:19. For the wisdom of this world is foolishness with Yah. For it is written, He catches the wise in their own craftiness. They believe that they really have the upper hand right now, particularly when it comes to us. If you're in doubt about whether or not this nation will ever get over their disdain for our people, you are in denial. But they will fall into the trap they think they're laying for the people of the Most High. Their wisdom is foolishness. But for us to see the supernatural works of the Almighty, we have to trust in Him and Him alone. We can't add anything else to it. Not the Most High and something else. No, our trust is in the Most High alone. So we'll continue looking at the examples of the supernatural that is found in Scripture in our next session. Be sure to join me for that. If this message has been a blessing to you, hit the like button and please share it. You're also welcome to subscribe if you have not already done so. Be blessed, family.